What is the book of First Chronicles? Well, Chronicles as a whole, First and Second Chronicles, were written by the man Ezra, for whom, of course, we have a book named after him himself. This was written around the 5th century BC, and a chronicler is another word for a historian. It's meant to give a summary and historical record for the benefit of the people of Israel. Now, the reason why Ezra chose to write this is because we're told in his book that he was a talented scribe who had an expert understanding of what we know today as the Old Testament. And as Israel's returning from what they knew then as the Babylonian exile for 70 years, they were being given a summary of their history from Genesis all the way into 2 Kings. This was the historical section of the Bible at this point. Now, this book itself is also in the genre of history, and it's meant to simply present Israel's events, goings and comings throughout their time in the land of Israel with an unblinking eye, and the bad is acknowledged just as accurately as the first. But noting that the Old Testament itself was historically written as a record, not of Israel's history as a whole, but specifically their dealings with the true and living God. It isn't an exhaustive record, but it is relevant to their theology or their understanding of God. And as Israel, the first and primary audience of this information, was just coming back from Babylon, it's worth noting that the majority of them were learning Hebrew as a second language. The main language of their environment that they grew up in was Aramaic, so they didn't have an emphasis on knowing their own history or their own culture or language, as opposed to what was directly relevant to them in their day-to-day lives. Ezra compiled and summarized the books of Genesis through 2 Kings for the benefit of people who wanted to be refreshed about this history as they were returning to their homeland, so that, of course, it didn't have to be as exhaustive an effort as it could be. Those who desired to look further into this could, but Chronicles was intended to summarize all of these things. That is, again, noting, and First Chronicles specifically, the books of Genesis through 2 Samuel, the goal of it being written.